I am pleased to welcome Tracy Spanenberg to the show, who's been deeply embedded in the HR world for almost 3 decades, over 3 decades.
Yeah,
Held
yeah,
the
yeah.
senior leadership roles in HR, involved in organizations like Hacking HR, Troop HR, Disrupt HR. You're an advisor at a HR tech startup, Harriet, and you run your own LLC, providing fractional CPO services and consulting. Tracy, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Joel. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, that was a mouthful to get out. You keep yourself
Yeah.
busy.
Yeah, as busy as I want to be right now in this new phase of my career.
You've had such a big impact on the industry over the years with the organizations you're involved with, your speaking sessions at events and advisory work. So, what drew you to a career in HR? Was that something that you had an interest in while you were in college or pre-employment there?
Actually, high school. So
Wow.
I know that doesn't happen very often. I've only met a few other people who are at that. So, way back in the 80s, when it was called personnel, I had an aunt
hmm
who worked in personnel for a law firm. And I thought that that was just the coolest job because I had a super interest in people and an interest in psychology and how the mind worked and a very strong interest in business. And I felt like that combined everything. So I was able to shadow her, went into undergrad with a degree in psychology. So I understood the workings of the mind and what made people tick a little bit better. And then got my graduate degree in human resources. So that was all very intentional.
I think it's interesting that you have a targeted focus on certain industries like distribution,
Mhm.
manufacturing. I'd love to hear from you. What are the major challenges? What are some of the concerns from HR teams and from organizations in those industries right now?
Yeah, so that specialization was very intentional. So I spent half of my career in distribution, and I had about a 30-year career in corporate before I left. In 25 of those years leading HR, and about 28 and a half of my years in HR were in what I would call frontline companies. So, including transportation, which is the start of my career at UPS. Challenges are unique, and I hate to overgeneralize and I hate to be too broad about it, but you have people who are often in the world of HR who are tenured. You have a lot of long tenured people in the companies that I work with, coinciding with a lot of change happening in the world of work, in the political environment, in everything, right? And so that tends to be very challenging for the HR team, very challenging for the executive teams, and that's not going away anywhere anytime soon. So if you have an HR leader, I want to work behind the scenes to support them and make sure that they have the modern skills that they need and make sure that they are approaching their work in the growth mindset that they need to be. There's two things, I think. A lot of HR leaders who maybe don't quite have those skills yet, they have the ability to get them but don't have that. And I also see a lot of executive teams who don't have that support in HR. That's not exclusive, but when you talk about the things that we just talked about, when you have a frontline workforce that has to come into a physical location every day, whether it's face to face with, like you talked about, retail, whether it's face to face with patients, whether it's face to face with customers or some form. And then you have a part of that workforce that doesn't, that might be hybrid or might be remote. There's some clash there. I know I was always concerned about, say, our distribution center, right? Because you want somebody who's the front line of what we called the heart of our business when I was at my last company. You want them to feel like they have a career path, but they can be somewhat isolated from the rest of the company. And so, how do you make the folks that are either in a position like that, or if you work with field workers, you work with drivers, how do you make them feel like part of the company and also that they have a path to progress, whether it's up into a different kind of role or even within their own role?
Follow you on LinkedIn and you post these photos with iced coffee and you
Yeah,
have
always
this
iced coffee. Yeah.
always iced coffee. You have these lovely backdrops overlooking an ocean or a nice beach or nice settings. But you usually talk about your journey as an entrepreneur or a solopreneur. So what has that transition been like going from a full-time role in HR to a fractional role? And do you see that more as a trend moving forward?
First of all, it's been awesome. So it's been amazing. But this was a planned move for me. So I accelerated a little bit because I had the opportunity and something that, after I hit 50 and our kids were older, our youngest graduated high school last year, it was something I wanted to do for the next phase of my life, to have more control over what I do and have an impact that was a little bit more broad. And so I think there's AI, which is impacting everyone in some way, shape, or form in everything that they do. And then there's the path out. Do I think they're related? I don't know. I think it's a little bit early to tell. What I can say is, I'm advising AI companies and I love it and I'm trying to learn. I want every HR leader to embrace generative AI or at least not be afraid of it. And at least with the ones I speak with, we've got a very long way to go there. We've got a really, really long way to go. I think out of the handful, 6, 7 that I talked to for a project I was working on, I think one of them had hands-on experience with ChatGPT. I'm painting a broad brush, but I think we've got a long way to go there. So it will definitely take some tasks. I use it for analyzing all the time. There is a wonderful AI tool and many wonderful AI tools that can look at employee sentiment and when you get into surveys. And so a lot of that kind of work can be done by AI. But then I think you look at why are people leaving? I think burnout is probably the number one factor. I don't know anyone in the HR space or anyone in general really who hasn't experienced some level of burnout. I get messages from people every day who are I wonder if this fractional thing is for me. And it might be, and it might not be. For me, I was running to, not running from something. And so I think it's proceed with caution if you're considering fractional, that it may be more of the same, it may be worse, or it may be exactly the thing you need to do at this point in your life.